Hi, welcome to your next tech startup. I'm host Isabel Rasmussen, and today I have a special guest, Lissandro, and he just landed a role as a senior software engineer at a Series C startup. And we're going to talk about how he has been able to interview at a lot of startups without applying to any of those roles he's been interviewing for. Every once in a while, I offer coaching for engineers who are looking for their next role. And in early December, Losandro and I worked on his LinkedIn profile, which you'll see the link below, and you can see what it looks like, how it reads. I remember when we were doing the exercise, we did it live, like you were updating as I was giving feedback, and you're just like, I have never put this much work into my LinkedIn profile. I remember you saying, and you were just kind of like, okay, I'll change that.
Yeah, we also talked about how I was having difficulty removing things, experiences, because the sentimental value it had for me. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of it
Yeah.
were not relevant with the type of companies and teams I was trying to attract. So, because that LinkedIn profile also translated into my resume, which we changed. I changed after we updated my LinkedIn. Yeah.
So yeah, so we did have you take out because you've been a software engineer since what year was your first job?
2006, I was a firmware engineer with Hewlett Packard.
Firmware. Okay. Right. So we took out everything that was not relevant to kind of being a full stack engineer.
The resume basically just covered, I think, the last 13, 14 years. And from there, only four or five of the startups that I worked at were included.
I've struggled with it because I'll have recommendations from people
Exactly.
from certain jobs that I like needed to eliminate because there weren't, I used to try to get people to adopt animals on the streets of San Francisco, not relevant to being a tech recruiter, although slightly. And yeah, so it is hard to kind of like you're letting go of parts of yourself, but from a like sourcing perspective, the thing that I had shared with you is that I have to put like parameters around searches, and years of experience is a parameter that I often do. And it is because your search results need to be under 1,000. There's a variety of different reasons why that is the case, but in LinkedIn, I feel like the search results get a little screwed up after you hit 1,000. If I'm hiring a senior software engineer, let's say 6+ years experience, I typically put in my parameters of the search like 8 to maybe 15 years experience. And then if that's too big, then I have to like cut it down. And then in theory, I'll do two searches, like one that's based off of the first set and then like a next set of years of experience. But a lot of people with 20+ years experience, not necessarily because I don't want to see your profile, but I'm just trying to make the search results a certain size that you don't get seen as quickly. What are the other things that like you felt like in making the changes to your profile that made a difference?
Well, you helped me in, with regard with the content of my experience and made it more concise. And that
Mhm.
was very helpful. And so when recruiters were reviewing my profile or, the search, what algorithm or they use to locate me, it was just easier to find matches around that. But
Yeah.
I think that really helped. And I think that was it. I mean, for most part, yeah, again, putting
Yeah.
down,
It's not that
not that
complicated.
complicated.
It's just most people don't bother to
Yeah.
do it. Okay, so now let's talk about, so we did that in early December. December is quiet typically in regards to hiring, and then January really ramps up. So come January, you were not applying to any roles. All interviews that you were doing were inbound from LinkedIn recruiting messages, and you were interviewing like constantly, I felt
It
like.
I was surprisingly actually started receiving messages from LinkedIn. I think
Mhm.
two or three. I interviewed with them, um, but I didn't hit the ground running until January when I started receiving more and more messages from recruiters. After initial discussion in a call, some it didn't feel like a good fit, but majority of them did. A lot of them wanted, talk to the startups, the founders or the team on the hire manager.
And you're probably interviewing, would you say 2 to 3 startups a week?
I'd say that's true. There were a few moments where I felt like, oh, where I was at the final round, or maybe I didn't do
Mhm.
so well in that round, and they decided not to move me forward. And I was worried that I don't have anyone in the queue to interview with next. And
Mhm.
next thing you know, I'm getting 2 or 3 messages. I do introductory calls. Next thing you know, I'm being move forward in the interview process. So even things were starting to find out, it just picked back up. It just comes in waves. It feels like that's what happened to me. 'Cause like last week,
Yeah.
I had 4 interviews with 4 different startups going through the final rounds. And but before that, I thought, I completed the final round with another one, which I didn't get an offer for, but
Mhm.
I thought that was it for a while. More came up, and I definitely credit LinkedIn because all of these inquiries were all from LinkedIn.
Yeah, from having a really good, solid profile on LinkedIn. About how many startups do you think you talked to this year?
Including the ones that did
Like,
not move forward. Yeah, I'd say around
yeah.
15, running up a little bit. Yeah, maybe rounding it up a little bit, but I'd say around there.
Okay, so around 15 startups. And then you did get to final rounds with almost half of those
Correct.
startups.
Or near. Yeah, I would consider the final round because
Yeah,
the next step would have just been the talk with the founder or the CEO. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And then you're actively interviewing for, I guess, 3 months and you got your offer.
Correct.
Yeah. And, I know it has been an incredibly emotionally challenging 3 months for you. I know there was days that you felt horrible and you thought about like leaving software engineering, which I was just like,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
I always give myself a day to sulk and just be sad about it, and
Yeah.
then I move forward. If I don't do that, it just carries over longer than the day. So that's been very helpful
Mhm.
for me to kind of get through these moments. But yeah, when you saw those messages from me, I was going through that moment.
Yeah. No, and I think I like that idea of having like a set amount of time. Like you can't stuff the emotion and like keep stuffing it and it not get to you. Letting yourself feel this feels really shitty. I got like really excited about this opportunity. And so you let your kind of self be in that and then okay, new day, new opportunity. Let's refocus.
That's pretty much it. I just let
Okay.
myself feel it, for that day, like the day after, typically,
Mhm.
or even, maybe a little longer than a day, but I always let myself feel it for the full day after the interview and then move forward, just focus on the next thing. Cause, I was fortunate to have something I have to be ready for to interview with. And um, I could
Yeah.
not let what was happening in my emotions to prevent me from being ready. So, and I think from those 8 startups or somewhere around there, I was extremely
Mhm.
excited and hopeful for, I'd say 6 of them. I
Yeah.
made really amazing connections with the people who interviewed me. For the most part, it was the system design that really hurt me, and things improved as I found my way of getting through them. But yeah, it was really hard to get rejections from those interviews, those companies, and not get an offer just because I was like extremely excited and it didn't work out. So
Yeah. No, I mean, it is really hard. And I knew you were going to land the role and you'd get really excited. And I would just be like, okay, you know, I understand this. I was trying to help you balance your excitement. And then I was also like, okay, make sure you're asking this about this company and this
yeah,
about this company. Make sure they have enough funding. It's hard.
yeah,
And you need to be excited in the interviews and not sound
yeah.
phony. So I don't know. It is such an emotional roller
And I
coaster.
do want to share, like, I felt like I killed, I'd say, well, I did extremely well in two.
You killed it.
Yeah, I still didn't get an offer, but I understood the
Yeah.
situation. Was able, the feedback I received as to their decision was valid and fair. At least I was understanding of
Yeah.
it, and that made it easier. Even though I felt like I did very well in the interviews, but it happens.
Mhm. Yeah. It's hard. Early stage startups are the hardest because someone on another episode shared that, which I loved. They're like, early stage startups are looking for a puzzle master. Even once you're the 40th engineer on a team, they're looking for a puzzle piece. and you were doing a lot of early stage startup, being one of the first 10 engineers on the team
Right.
interviewing. Those are hard roles to interview for, and you did incredibly well.
Those were very difficult. The bar was high. I fell flat
The
on my face.
bar is insanely
I fell
high.
flat on my
Like,
face.
there's no room for
Yeah.
falter.
Some were
It's
very.
unfortunate.
A lot of it too depends on how you feel or what the experience is with them.
Yeah.
And when I reflect back, I was like, oh well, it's a good thing I didn't get an offer because my experience wasn't that great. I just
Yeah.
was okay. Well, this is probably not the type of environment I want to be in.
Yeah.
But majority of them, I was like, at least with the ones I was excited about, I was like, I knew I would, you know, it would have been a good fit. It just, yeah, for whatever
Mhm.
reason, didn't work out.
Yeah. And like I think you had a great experience with the company that you're joining, and I think that's going to be a great next fit for you. So hopefully people listened, felt inspiration, and thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah,
story.
don't give up. Believe in yourself. And yeah, thank you for having me.